It all started on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was running late for work, as usual. With my mind racing about the day ahead, my coffee had spilled. My shoelaces were untied, and I was mentally cursing the traffic when I saw her, an older woman struggling to carry two heavy grocery bags across the street. Her face was etched with frustration, and it was clear she was having a hard time. I could have easily ignored her, caught up in my own chaotic world. But something made me stop. Maybe it was the way her eyes met mine, or perhaps it was just a rare moment of clarity where I realized that my problems weren't as big as they seemed. So I approached her and offered to help. "Thank you, young man," she said with a warm smile that instantly brightened my mood. "You don't know how much I appreciate this." As I carried her bags to a nearby bench, we started talking. Her name was Mrs. Reynolds, and she lived just a few blocks away. She told me about her late husband, how they used to take morning walks together, and how much she missed those simple moments now that she was alone. There was something comforting about her presence, like talking to a wise grandmother who had seen it all and still found joy in the little things. Before I left, Mrs. Reynolds insisted on giving me a homemade cookie from her bag, a small gesture, but one that felt incredibly kind. We said our goodbyes, and I walked away feeling lighter, as if the weight of the world had been lifted just a bit. That afternoon, I couldn't stop thinking about our encounter. There was something about it that stayed with me, a quiet reminder that kindness has a way of coming back to you. Little did I know that small act of kindness would soon change my life in ways I never imagined. The following weekend, I decided to visit the local park where Mrs. Reynolds mentioned she liked to sit and watch the ducks. It was a sunny day, and I thought it would be nice to say hello again. When I arrived, I saw her sitting on a bench, as expected, but she wasn't alone. Beside her was a young woman around my age, laughing as they fed the ducks together. I hesitated for a moment, not wanting to intrude, but Mrs. Reynolds spotted me and waved me over with that same warm smile. "This is my granddaughter, Emma," she introduced as I approached. "She's visiting for the weekend." Emma turned to me with a smile that mirrored her grandmother's, and I was instantly struck by how beautiful she was. Her eyes, the way they lit up when she laughed, and the kindness that radiated from her. We spent the afternoon together, the three of us, talking and laughing like old friends. Emma and I discovered we had a lot in common: similar tastes in music, books, and a shared love for random acts of kindness. It felt like meeting someone who understood me in a way that few people ever had. As the sun began to set, Mrs. Reynolds excused herself, leaving Emma and me alone by the pond. We continued talking, our conversation flowing effortlessly. There was no awkwardness, just a sense of ease and connection that felt almost magical. Before we knew it, hours had passed, and it was time to say goodbye. But instead of feeling sad, there was an unspoken understanding between us that this was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Emma and I kept in touch, texting and calling each other every day. Our conversations were filled with laughter, shared stories, and the excitement of getting to know someone who made you feel alive. We went on a few dates, each one better than the last, and it wasn't long before we realized that what we had was something special. Mrs. Reynolds was delighted, of course. She loved telling everyone how her simple grocery trip led to her granddaughter finding love. And in a way, she was right. If I hadn't stopped to help that day, I might never have met Emma. It was a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come when you least expect them, through small moments of kindness that ripple out and change everything. Fast forward to today, and Emma and I are still together, happier than ever. We've made it a tradition to visit the park with Mrs. Reynolds every Sunday, feeding the ducks and laughing about how fate brought us together. It's a simple routine, but one that means the world to us. Looking back, I realized that life has a funny way of surprising you when you open yourself up to it. A spilled coffee, an untied shoelace, and a small act of kindness led me to the love of my life. And for that, I'll always be grateful.